All right, chapter 10 of The Power of Now, the meaning of surrender. Now, this is a great chapter. Hopefully, if you've made it this far, you're starting to move away from just conceptualizing these ideas, thinking about them, trying to decide if you believe or don't believe, and you're moving away from that towards experiencing these in your own life, actually trying some of these practices, some of these tools to see how they actually work, being the scientist of your own life in that way. And that's, of course, what this whole book is about, getting out of all the conceptualizing in our minds and down into the reality, the only place that's real, the present moment. And so when we talk about surrender, this is another one of those ideas that conceptually we bring these certain, usually negative ideas to this word, right? Surrender often means lethargic or giving up, or it was too hard, I couldn't complete my task, so I just surrendered, or waving the white flag. Eckhart talks over and over in this chapter that is not what he means by surrender. You know, some of my friends were even saying this word surrender is a little bit of an obstacle. Something more like acceptance would be better for them. And what I would say is the word here is not the experience of surrender. So the word surrender is just language. So is acceptance. All of our language has its limits, but it is pointing to this deeper idea of what surrender really is. So if the word is an obstacle for you, swap it out with another word. The word is less important. It's the experience of surrender that we're trying to get to. Only then can you really understand what surrender is. So Eckhart says here, surrender does not mean to passively put up with whatever situation you find yourself in and do nothing about it. Nor does it mean to cease making plans or initiating positive action. Surrender is the simple but profound wisdom of yielding to rather than opposing the flow of life. And of course, the flow of life is this present moment, this situation. What is? This is what we're not opposing. He says it's to relinquish inner resistance to what is. Inner resistance is to say no to what is through mental judgment and emotional negativity. And it becomes particularly pronounced when things go wrong, which means, get this, there's a gap between the demands or rigid expectations of your mind and what is. So that's the pain gap. When there's a distance between the rigid expectations of our mind, how we think things should go, and what is. Reality, what's actually happening. So when it's raining outside, it is what it is, right? It is raining. That's reality. That's what is. Then when our mind goes, oh, I was supposed to have a picnic today and the rain is wrecking my day, and this always happens to me every time I try to plan something, and there's all this resistance. And that is us saying, why didn't the universe listen to my thoughts about how today was supposed to go? You know, there's a fighting between my thoughts and expectations about the day versus the day, versus what's real. And so Eckhart is saying surrender means not fighting with what already is. You start by just accepting or surrendering to what is. So it's raining, period. Then you can take positive action. Okay, so how about I take an umbrella? Or how about I go play in the rain? Or how about I reschedule my plans? Or there's tons of positive action you can take. It's not just giving up and, well, I'll just sit in the rain and pout. You know, it's like first you accept the reality of what is. Then you take positive action. Surrender is a purely inner phenomenon. It does not mean that on the outer level, you cannot take action and change the situation. In fact, it's not the overall situation that you need to accept when you surrender, but just the tiny segment called the now. And I love that he says that. He's not saying you have to accept all of your future projections of all these things. Well, if this happened today, then that means tomorrow this is going to happen, and that means in a year from now this is going to happen. And what, I have to accept all that? No. You don't have to accept your mental projections of what's happening. You accept the present moment, that this right now, this reality, this is what's real, this is what's happening. And now let's take positive action going forward from there. So he says, for example, if you were stuck in the mud somewhere, you wouldn't say, okay, I resign myself to being stuck in the mud. Resignation is not surrender. You don't need to accept an undesirable or unpleasant life situation, nor do you need to deceive yourself and say that there's nothing wrong with being stuck in the mud. I love that. He's not just saying, pretend that, oh, everything's fine. I'm just accepting everything, and so I'm just happy about everything. He's like, no, you accept what's real because it is what's real. And then you can take positive action after that. He says, you recognize fully that you want to get out of the mud. You then narrow your attention down to the present moment without mentally labeling it in any way. This means there's no judgment of the now. Therefore, there's no resistance, no emotional negativity. You accept the isness of this moment. Then you take action and you do all you can to get out of the mud. Such action I call positive action. It is far more effective than the negative action which arises out of anger, despair, or frustration. Until you achieve the desired results, you continue to practice surrender by refraining from labeling the now. So labeling the now, that's the pain gap. That's when we have rigid expectations of how things should have gone compared to how the universe unfolded. And the more we say, the universe should have unfolded how my thoughts said they should, that's the pain gap. That's when we create that pain. So Eckhart is encouraging us here to surrender to what is, what already happened. It is raining. I am stuck in the mud. And then take positive action to get out of the mud and even learn from that situation. That's what true surrender is, accepting what is and then taking positive action. All right, let's go to the next big idea. Unsatisfactory life situations. Now, many of us find ourselves in situations that we wish we weren't in and we wish we could change, and we tend to resist or fight against these or push these away because, there's an unconscious belief somewhere in there that says, if I resist this, if I push it away, that will somehow undo this situation back to how it was or resolve the situation somehow. And of course, Eckhart is flipping this idea on its head. He's saying the resistance to what happened, that resistance is actually perpetuating the situation. It's actually an obstacle in positive change. It's the resistance that keeps it stuck. And what we need to do instead is accept the situation, surrender to the situation, and then we can take positive action. So he says, in the state of surrender, you see very clearly what needs to be done, and you take action, doing one thing at a time and focusing on only one thing at a time. Learn from nature. See how everything gets accomplished and how the miracle of life unfolds without dissatisfaction or unhappiness. If your overall situation is unsatisfactory or unpleasant, separate out this instant and surrender to what is. Then look at the specifics of the situation. Ask yourself, is there anything I can do to change the situation, improve it, or remove myself from it? If so, you take appropriate action. Focus not on the 100 things that you will or may have to do at some future time, but on the one thing you can do now. And this is key. We tend to project ourselves in the future and think of all the things that could go wrong and start focusing on all those 100 things that are actually a couple steps from now, that we can't actually work on now, but maybe we're worried about or we're anxious about. Those start to take up more of our attention, and we lose the now. We lose the present moment. right now, there's steps that we can take towards this thing. And some of the steps are out of our reach at this point. So he's saying, don't focus on the 99 other things. There's one step you can do right now. Put your attention on that thing and work on that. The only time you have interaction with your life is the present moment right now. This is where we want to spend our time. This doesn't mean you should not do any planning. It may well be that planning is the one thing you can do now, but make sure you don't start to run mental movies, project yourself in the future, and lose the now. And that is something we're all guilty of, is leaving the now, the present moment, the time where we can work on this, and going into those future problems and trying to solve those before they even get here, when we can't work on them. We're losing the now, so he's encouraging us to come back and work on what we can do here in the present moment. Now here's the other thing, is he says, don't confuse surrender with an attitude of, I just can't be bothered anymore, or I just don't care anymore. If you look at it closely, you will find that such an attitude is tainted with negativity in the form of hidden resentment, and so it is not surrender at all, but masked resistance. As you surrender, direct your attention inward to check to see if there is any trace of resistance left inside you. Be very alert when you do so, otherwise a pocket of resistance may continue to hide in some dark corner in the form of a thought or an unacknowledged emotion. All right, let's go to the next big idea. When disaster strikes. Many of us know what it's like to go through a rock bottom type of situation, a situation in our lives where we hit a point where the pain is so great that we know something has to change. And when I reflect back on some of the hardest times of my life, I can see that those were also the times when huge growth happened in my life. And not that I would ever choose to have one of those painful rock bottom times. The reality is that I would not be the person that I am today had I not gone through that. And what's interesting is not every painful situation guarantees growth, because it's not the pain that creates the growth. It's actually the deep acceptance and surrender to that situation that allows the miracle of growth to happen. And Eckhart is teaching us here in this section about transforming surrender into peace. And so he starts off by saying, being cut off from your feelings is not surrender. He says there's multiple chances to surrender. He says, your first chance is to surrender each moment to the reality of that moment, knowing that what is cannot be undone because it already is. You say yes to what is or accept what isn't. Then you do what you have to do, whatever the situation requires. Okay, so that's your first chance. As it happens, you accept it is what it is, it can't be undone, and then you take whatever action. It may look as if the situation is creating the suffering, but ultimately this is not so. Your resistance is. He says, here's your second chance to surrender. If you cannot accept what is outside, then you accept what's inside. If you cannot accept the external condition, accept the internal condition. This means do not resist the pain. Allow it to be there. Surrender to the grief, despair, fear, loneliness, or whatever form the suffering takes. Witness it without labeling it mentally. Embrace it. See how the miracle of surrender transmutes deep suffering into deep peace. Now he's saying peace here. He's not saying happiness. You're not just like happy when you suffer. There's a big difference between peace and happiness, which we've talked about in previous videos. Then the question is asked, how would you surrender to non-surrender? And he says, forget about surrender for a minute. When your pain is deep, all talk of surrender will probably seem futile and meaningless anyway. When your pain is deep, you will likely have a strong urge to escape from it rather than surrender to it. You don't want to feel what you feel. What could be more normal? But there is no escape, no way out. There are many pseudo-escapes: work, drink, drugs, anger, projection, suppression, and so on. But they don't free you from the pain. Suffering does not diminish in intensity when you make it unconscious. When you deny emotional pain, everything you do or think, as well as your relationships, become contaminated with it. You broadcast it, so to speak, as the energy you emanate, and others will pick it up subliminally. When there is no way out, there is still always a way through. So don't turn away from the pain. Face it. Feel it fully. Feel it. Don't think about it. Express it if necessary, but don't create a script in your mind around it. Give all of your attention to the feeling, not the person, event, or situation that seems to have caused it. Don't let the mind use the pain to create a victim identity for yourself out of it. Feeling sorry for yourself and telling others your story will keep you stuck in suffering. Since it's impossible to get away from the feeling, the only possibility of change is to move into it. Otherwise, nothing will shift. So give your complete attention to what you feel and refrain from mentally labeling it. So that's our challenge. I hope you loved this book. I hope it helped you. I hope it was a positive read for you. And I hope you share it with others. I love making these videos. I hope you enjoyed this 10-part video series. And like I always say, I'm not going to ask you to like or subscribe this channel, but I am going to ask you to turn your phone off, turn your screens off, head outside, and enjoy the present moment. Thanks so much. Have a good one.